Alright guys, welcome back to another Master and Apprentice video and podcast. As you guys can tell from the title, we're going to be going over Andor Season 2. It just finished up wrapping. The season's finished. It came out relatively quick. They released 3 episodes every week and it had 12 episodes, so it was about done in a month. So it was done pretty quickly. Andor Season 1 was a show that had pretty good reviews and ratings. It didn't really track a lot in viewership and number wise, so it's kind of a weird show that doesn't have a huge audience, but the audience that it does have, it's captured well. So going into season 2, we were interested to see if it can recapture some of that magic and just the Star Wars in general community. The last 2 seasons or 2 shows they've put out on Disney Plus have both not garnered a lot of viewership. Neither. One so bad that it got canceled, and the one after it and the Skeleton Crew actually got less views than the Acolyte. Which, the views aren't necessarily everything, but this is a business, and so if they can't make a show that can get a lot of views, at the end of the day it is going to hurt them. So we're going to see going forward how well it can do. But when it comes to season 2, standalone, I think it's an improvement on season 1. I didn't mind season 1. If I had to look back at it in retrospect, I'd probably give a 6 out of 10. Somewhere in that area. It's a show that is pretty good. It's a well-written show. The visuals, special effects, the editing, it's better than pretty much any of the other Star Wars shows we've seen. Pretty much better than any Disney Plus show we've seen. So you can give it props for that. But in a Star Wars genre, it's not really Star Wars. I don't know why people get so upset about that, but season 1 had one appearance of an alien, right? For a Star Wars universe, and you only see one alien, and it's for 5 seconds, that's kind of bizarre. It makes you feel a little taken out of the picture. For a show that's mostly about, spies and going against the Empire, we only see stormtroopers once in season 1. You know what I mean? So it's a show that is a pretty good show, all things being said, but in a Star Wars genre with a Star Wars backdrop, I feel like it fails to connect to the Star Wars universe as a whole. It's fine. I've always said this is a show that can only really capture a niche part of the audience, right? It's not for everybody, right? No one's gonna watch this show and be like, yep, this is for every Star Wars fan, because it's not. It's really not. But for the fans who do like it, a much more older, mature audience, I think this show works for some of those fans. Someone who's not necessarily looking for a nostalgia trip, but a different aspect of Star Wars that maybe they're more drawn to. And season 2, I think, does that above and beyond than season 1. I think season 2 is, especially the second half of season 2, the last 6 episodes, are the best episodes of Andor in general. Just season 1 and season 2. The first half of it was fine. I think something that is an improvement, and it wasn't necessarily because of them, was the pacing. A lot better pacing in my opinion. Season 1 dragged. People were like, oh, you don't like dialogue, you don't like build-up, you don't like, all these things, exposition. No, that's fine, but if I wanted a show that's really good at it, I wouldn't watch Star Wars Andor. I'd watch a show like, Breaking Bad, right? Game of Thrones, something like that. That's a drama. It's nothing but a drama, right? Andor isn't necessarily just a drama. It's a Star Wars drama. So I want to see some Star Wars parts of it, not just the drama part. Season 2 does it much better. And it's mostly because they were forced, because season 1 wasn't super successful. They had to kind of shorthand their overall plan. They had, I think it was 5 seasons in total planned. They had to cut it down to 3 and then cut it down to 2 eventually. And those 4 or 5 additional seasons after season 1, they cut into 1 season. And so every 3 episodes, like I mentioned, they drop every week. They would jump a year forward, right? And so it was essentially what you were getting was a shortened version of every season that they had planned, essentially. Which I just think was better. I enjoyed the little arcs every 3 episodes. I enjoyed the character development. I think there was more character development in the last season 2 than there was season 1. You know what I mean? I just do. A lot of the characters, like Bix, for instance. Bix became a lot more interesting in season 2 than she was in season 1. which is bizarre because season 1's filled with so much exposition. It's just, I think the pacing was done a lot better. The Star Wars atmosphere, especially in the last 6 episodes, was done brilliantly. They really gave the Empire, they gave the Rebellion, they gave the espionage feeling. It was something reminiscent of like Star Wars Rebels in a way, but much more mature, and I like that, and I think that was cool. Especially those last 6 episodes, bringing back some really cool characters like Krennic, for instance. In general, I just think it was, or Captain Draven. I don't know if it was General Draven or something like that. He was in Rogue One, and K2SO, right? Some of these characters that you get connected from Rogue One, you are now seeing their stories begin in Andor Season 2. So, in general, I think the pacing was better. I think the Star Wars atmosphere is better. I can't say the story was better, because the story and the writing and like the dialogue, all of that was fine in Season 1 and 2. It's just there were some things they could improve on to maybe grasp a bigger audience, and I think they did that in Season 2 with the Star Wars atmosphere, the like I said, the pacing, and then just connecting to the overall lore. I feel like Season 1, and this is kind of due to the Star Wars atmosphere, it just felt so out of touch to the rest of the Star Wars universe. Like, we were getting connections to nothing we'd heard before, people we had never met. Where Season 2, it started bringing in some characters, it started referencing some people and places, and it just kind of made it feel more connected, which, in all honesty, is what most of these shows are, and it's what they're supposed to be. And I think Season 2 just did a lot better in general.
Yeah, it's not often where a show gets sped up or a show gets cut down for seasons, and I think it turns out better from that, but this is definitely a case, because if those 3-episode arcs were a season each, I feel like they would have dragged a lot, because they did great with the pacing, and they did great with the character development in 3-episode arcs. So I feel like if you made each of these 3-episode arcs into 12 episodes, yeah, there's probably characters you cut, probably this, probably that, a lot of things that you cut, but they did great with what they got, in my opinion. The first half of Season 2, I was like, this is pretty good, but the second half, they really showed me. I mean, people have already decided if they liked Andor probably before the second half of Season 2, and if you already decided you don't like it, I'd honestly give it a shot, just because that is just an amazing, that's peak Rebellion era for me, that second half of Season 2. It's just great, and I really thought that cutting it down was somehow the right decision, because 4 seasons out of this, not that would be horrible, but it would have been way too slow, and that was the biggest complaint I had about Season 1.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm in the Star Wars community on Reddit, X, Instagram, all this, YouTube, you see a lot of people defending it and be like, oh, you just want lightsabers and blasters and lasers the whole time. And it's not necessarily that. Season 2 was better because it was more Star Wars atmospheric. Again, if I really wanted to watch a TV show drama, Andor isn't my first option. There's better dramas than Andor, right? That are coming out now, that have come out before, that are coming out in the future. Andor isn't successful because it's a great drama and it's written by this mastermind, Tony Gilroy. No, it works like Rogue One because it's a different part of Star Wars. But in the end, it's still Star Wars, right? So you don't necessarily have to have the lightsabers and the Force, but you got to have aliens. You have to have the galaxy far, far away feeling where, you're going to different planets, you're seeing different scenery, you're seeing different settings. You have to have, some overlooming threat, right? Star Wars has always had that. It had the Empire, then it had the Separatists and Darth Sidious, then it had, First Order. It's always had something that has always made you cheer for the underdog, right? That's something that's always been part of Star Wars. It's just something that I think Season 1 didn't do very well, and I think Season 2 did a lot better. I think Season 2 ended really well. Sometimes with some of these shows, they end abruptly. I thought the ending was very done well. Overall, I think it's a much better season. I think this evens out the series in general. Like, I would almost say you can skip most of Season 1 and just get right to Season 2. If you liked Rogue One, you'll probably like most of Season 2. So, for the people who liked it, you probably were already going to like it to begin with. For the people who didn't like Season 1, you'll probably like Season 2 more. I would have to, at least especially that second half, it's just much better. So, I would recommend watching it. overall, I'd probably give like a 7.5, 8 out of 10. Maybe even a little bit higher, but the first couple episodes were dragging, and there's just some things, that I think they could have improved on. But in general, I think it was done pretty well, and I'd give it like a 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, I mean, for season 2 as a whole, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Even the first 6 episodes, that it was a little here and a little there, which wasn't amazing, wasn't great, knocking my socks off like the second half, but it was still a lot of good quality content after it goes into development to the second half. Like the whole thing, the whole Planet Gorman having the insurrection, that was a really cool plot. It felt like it took a little bit long, but it was good overall.
And it was cool to have that connection to Star Wars Rebels, right? There's a scene in Rebels where Mon Mothma's talking about the Empire's massacre on Gorman, and that's, a cool scene to show one side by side with Andor. Like, those things are really, really cool, right? The cool, scenes you get in Rebels that connect to Clone Wars are really, really cool, right? This is, in a dumbed down version, a more mature version of the last couple of seasons of Rebels, right? Rebels was, I think, a lot more popular and a lot more family friendly, which just means it could reach a bigger audience. Andor is like it, but for a more mature audience, which means it's not going to reach as many people, right? But if you're into that, if you liked those parts of Rebels, like the rebellion, the espionage parts, the Rebels kind of like showing how all the politics of the rebellion mashing up together, how that all happened, you'll really like Andor. So, like I said, if you liked Rogue One, I think you'll like this. Season 1 wasn't as impressive, but Season 2 is much, much better. It's an improvement for sure. And overall, I'd probably give Andor a 7 out of 10. Somewhere in the middle between Season 1 and Season 2. Season 1 was a little bit, of a snoozer. Season 2 is a much more improvement. So I'd probably give overall a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, overall, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Going back on it, if this was their plan all along, which it obviously wasn't, the 2 seasons like this, Season 2 was kind of how the rebellion got to where it was leading up to Rogue One, and Season 1 is just character development on Andor. That's how I see it, at least. I mean, there's a couple things in there that are a bit more important than that, but that's pretty much how I see it, and if you look at it like that, Season 1's not horrible, it's just slow.
With all that, we hope you guys enjoyed this. Let us know what you guys think down in the comments. I see a lot of people split on whether they liked Andor or not. I would just advise, be open. If you liked it, that's great. But understand, a lot of people don't want necessarily a mature version of Star Wars, right? Like they like the goofy Rebels version, and that's okay too. And if you liked Rogue One and you liked parts of Rebels, you might want to try Andor out. It's pretty cool. I would have to admit it's a little bit more niche, but if it's something you're looking to, get interested in, I would recommend. So let us know what you guys think down in the comments. Let us know what you guys think of our review. If there's anything we missed that may impact the overall review, let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. If you guys are listening on podcast, don't forget to hit that follow and download. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.